Today's vocabulary: constructive criticism, feedback, conflate, gift, autism spectrum disorder, neurodivergent, insufferable, disrespect. This week's sources are scienceofpeople.com. Our reference sources are dictionary.com and Merriam-Webster. Today's vocabulary: constructive criticism, feedback that identifies specific areas for improvement while providing actionable suggestions and maintaining respect for the recipient. Unlike harsh critique that tears down, constructive criticism builds up by focusing on behaviors and outcomes rather than attacking character or worth. Conflate: to combine two or more separate things, especially pieces of text, to form a whole. Conflate: to combine two or more separate things, especially pieces of text, to form a whole. Next word. Can you? Oh my God. Gift. I'm using the lavalier. I forgot this one is corded. Definition 1. Something given voluntarily without payment in return as to show favor towards someone, honor an occasion, or make a gesture of assistance. Present. I want to make sure that y'all are seeing these words as we define them. Feedback is the next word. We're using definition 3 and definition 4. Feedback is a reaction or response to a particular process or activity. Definition 4, evaluative information derived from such a reaction or response. Everybody saw what the definition of feedback is. Yes, a reaction or response to a particular process or activity. We're forging ahead. Insufferable. Not to be endured. What we're not going to do is spell it wrong in front of people like that. Not to be endured, intolerable, unbearable. That's the definition of insufferable. Disrespect. Lack of respect. We don't like definitions that use the word in the definition, but we'll tolerate it for today. Lack of respect, discourtesy, rudeness. I hope the light is not glaring. I try to make the light balance so that you would be able to see, and I don't think it's working, but I am doing my best. Neurodivergent. Relating to or showing a typical neurological behavior and development, as in autism spectrum disorder or dyslexia. Most of our words came from dictionary.com today. I did not particularly love this definition, so I went and sourced our good friends Merriam and Webster. They were a little bit more expansive on their definition, saying having or relating to a disorder or condition such as autism spectrum disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I used the acronym. Dyslexia or obsessive compulsive disorder that impacts the way the brain processes information, exhibiting or characteristic of variations in typical neurological development. That light is not giving what it's supposed to give. Look, I'm acting like that's helping. But I said it while I was writing it, so you should have been writing it down. Let me repeat it. Having or relating to a disorder or condition, such as autism spectrum disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, dyslexia, or obsessive compulsive disorder that impacts the way the brain processes information, exhibiting or characteristic of variations in typical neurological development. Okay, and that was from Merriam-Webster. The first one was relating to or showing atypical neurological behavior and development, as in autism spectrum disorder or dyslexia. Okay, everybody got that? Good. We got one more term. Autism spectrum disorder. What is that? A developmental disability of highly variable presentation, characterized by social and communication differences, repetitive behaviors, or a restricted range of interests, and which commonly manifests in early childhood. Let me read that to you one more time. A developmental disability of highly variable presentation characterized by social and communication differences, repetitive behaviors, or a restricted range of interests, and which commonly manifests in early childhood. How do these words go together? I'm finna tell you about it. Let's get into the episode. Passionate public service announcement. Passionate. Let me tell you something. So what is this Passion PSA podcast? Who am I? Well, they call me Passion, short for passion, no last necessary. Why is there no last name necessary? Because the first name says it all. I am Passion and all that embodies. What do I do here? I give you the life coaching that you know you need, but don't enroll yourself in. When did I start? Actually, 2017. I'd leave a PSA on my Instagram regarding something I'd observed, and now we've evolved to this. Why do I do it? Why not? If even one person is able to take away one thing that changes their life, someone else's life, or changes the world for the better, then I've done what I was charged to do. So come on in, sit and listen for a while. There's something here for everyone at the Passion PSA podcast. Greetings and salutations, my beloved passionates, newcomers, visitors, and guests. I'm fairly certain this week's episode is going to be lengthy, so we're skipping straight to the content. There will be some tea spilled, so you won't feel like I grabbed you by your hair and dragged you down the stairs this week. You can clap for that. Let's do our affirmations and get into it. I am a person of integrity. I speak with clarity. I speak the truth. I listen to comprehend. I am open to correction. I own my errors. I honor the pause before responding. I lead by example. I live by example. I am well. It is well. All is well. Well is all. Ashe, ashe, ashe. So again, this week we started with vocabulary, and that was essential so you can know what we're focusing on to support one of our fellow passionates' request to discuss constructive criticism versus feedback. Now, said passionate shared that they'd received some very unexpected and very unsolicited feedback. Some of it was informative. Some of it could definitely be perceived as inappropriate. The point passionate made was that there's a fine line between constructive criticism versus feedback, and they questioned where the line is drawn. Now, having lived through this very publicly on the socials and in a most unpleasant way, I'm going to share with you what I posted. They did their best to crucify me in the comments. And I didn't take it down because the point of posting it was to receive feedback. That's your first passion point. Be specific in your desires. You know when you prayed for a thing and got a thing, but it wasn't the thing you wanted the way you wanted? I posted open to feedback, but not that kind of feedback. Knowing that the intention is engagement, but also knowing even if you gave specific instructions for someone to not come on your post with their negativity, some will still and some will specifically come to be negative. Either to push your buttons or to prove that you can't tell them what to do. You have to know that you can't control the engagement. You can only control how you respond to it. If you're a creative or aspiring to create content of any kind, social media posts, long form content on YouTube, movies, plays, if you want to draw graffiti stick figures on a train, make sure you have that written down. You can't control the engagement. You can only control how you respond to it. I did that. Initially, it was no easy feat because it was clear the intention was blatant disrespect. But I come in here every week and I tell y'all it's safe to feel how you feel, right? So I allowed them to feel how they feel, express themselves as wretchedly as they chose, and still responded to clarify and get better understanding. Now, according to an article I found about constructive criticism on scienceofpeople.com, I checked all the boxes. But people are reactive. Most by choice, and a lot of people commenting on something they disagree with have zero context, zero support for their argument other than a singular post, poor communication skills, and limited vocabulary. My intentions in the message I'd sent, which is what I used as the post, weren't well received by miscellaneous nondescript immaterial individuals on the internet.
But who are you, commenter?
But they weren't poorly received by the person the message was for. You could say you would have done this, and I should have done that, and you're better because ABC, but who can confirm or deny that? And do you matter enough to me or my success that I should now do something with that information? Also, I gave an 8-part thread that detailed my thoughts and my takeaways, literally the whole message that I sent. A message where the commenters ultimately conflated two things, which was where a lot of the vitriol stemmed from. And since the people then felt like I was being judgmental, they decided to judge me more harshly. Now let's look at the post. So my adult goddaughter reached out to me and asked me for a coat. A week ago, she was asked what she wanted. She said a sweatsuit. I took this new inquiry as an opportunity for a teachable moment. I said an 8-part thread. 3 lessons. I just asked you last Saturday what you wanted as a gift. You said you wanted a sweatsuit. It's winter and you know you need a coat. I got what you asked for when that money could have been spent on what you needed. Lesson. Needs supersede wants. The expense of what you need can sometimes be mitigated or justified because it's a necessity, whereby making it a priority. Ask for what you need. 1A, a sidebar. This is where they got all the way on fire. People like to see their gifts being used regularly. They like to know their money was well spent. A coat that you'll be wearing every day feels like a way better investment than a sweatsuit you may wear every so often. I get why that one set them off. Lesson 2. I didn't answer you yesterday because I was already navigating negative feelings unrelated to you and didn't want to take it out on you, even though what you asked me brought up similar feelings. Lesson. Even if there is reason to chop somebody's head off, take a pause before responding. You will more than likely respond equally as effectively with way less damage. Easy as a typo. Okay? Lesson 3. I gave you a coat a few years back. I had just fixed the pockets. I loved that coat. It was my favorite, but you needed it. So I gave it to you. Then you left it behind when you relocated. No care, no concern. You never told me until I asked about it. And when you did tell me, you just shrugged your shoulders and didn't think anything of it. Granted, the relocation was abrupt, but anybody could have gone over there and picked it up, including me if you had told me. You didn't care enough about it to ask someone to. At least that's how it appeared. Lesson. When you ask somebody for something they've given you in the past, consider how you've handled that thing. If you handled it carelessly, they may be less inclined to give you that thing again for concern that you'll handle it poorly again. That said, yes, I have a coat. Yes, I can give it to you. I don't know if it'll fit, but you're welcome to try it. If it doesn't fit, we'll go from there. If you handle it poorly, don't ask me for another coat. You'll have to come here to pick it up. Let me know your schedule, and I'll see how it aligns with mine. We'll go from there. I hope this message is received in and with love as it is intended. Your feedback is welcome. If you are angered or triggered in any way, there's room for that, and you may be honest in your expression as long as you're respectful. Love you. Have a glorious day today. Couple things. This wasn't recent. This is over a year and some change ago. And she's in her 20s, right? When I was in my 20s, I didn't make all the best decisions. I didn't think certain things. I didn't think about everything from the perspective I think about it now. Most of us didn't. A lot of people forget that because you didn't know them at a certain point in their life, other people did. And while they stand up and get really self-righteous, they weren't always perfect. So they got in these comments. And baby, 293 comments, and 2 days later, I stopped responding. It was exhausting and pointless. Eventually, it stopped circulating. Out of 293 comments, 23 weren't direct attacks. Out of 23 that weren't super crazy, 2 were turnarounds after we went back and forth. 2 asked me if I was neurodivergent because I didn't go lower when people used words like insufferable, toxic, trash, self-righteous, a-hole, a horrible person to call godmom, exhausting, smug, awful, self-absorbed, Karen, judgmental, rude, a-hat, inconsiderate, nuisance, tyrant, and condescending. Now, y'all might agree with them. Y'all might think these people are unhinged nut jobs responding from their own trauma. There's room for both. Where I felt like I was wrong was the sidebar. The majority felt like that was a string being attached to a gift, and I got that. I acknowledge that. It's not my position, hence why I said people like to see, but if and since it wasn't my position, that could have been left out. Got it. No problem. The majority didn't receive it as not being my position, and I accepted it. Everything else, I stood on. The 2 comments that started out crazy that turned around, okay? This, I don't know if this is a man or a female, says,
"Wow, you sound absolutely insufferable."
My response, interesting. She received it all in love. Why was this insufferable?
Because not only did you make the so-called gift giving completely about yourself, you also lectured an adult just to rub that smugness in her face. Yikes, I definitely avoid you in my life.
So my response was, half the time, adults need more correction than children. Also, you're considered an adult at age 21. She's 22. I didn't rub anything in her face. I gave her points of perspective. If I'd made it about me, I would have told her how I could have spent the money on myself. Instead, I told her a more important need would have been already met. You sound triggered and injured, beloved, but your perspective is appreciated nonetheless. He then responded, he or she, the mystery remains.
I appreciate that this is a blind spot for you. So here's my explanation of how you made it about yourself. You explained to us what you think your goddaughter needs, how often you think the gift needs to be worn, how long you expect her to keep it, and how carelessly you thought she handled it. That's the part about making it about yourself. True gift giving involves letting go of every single expectation like that.
Now, I don't know who else's perspective I could write something from if I'm talking about me and how I'm viewing it. But okay, I said to him, I see where you're coming from. What I think she needs, agreed. How often it needs to be worn, I may have delivered that wrong, or how it sounded in my head is different than how it read on the screen. I'll take that. A few people spoke to personal injury or past trauma influencing what I said. So with the previous quote, I can definitely agree that was about me. And without full context, it seems like I'm gift giving with strings. The correction, the temps have been very cold. I would rather her get a coat because that's more important to me. Her health and well-being are more important to me. I'm okay with that making me selfish. I want her warm and well, function and style, coat and sweatsuit if I can swing it. I could have left the sidebar out. It wasn't a lesson. It was an observation that includes a lot of people, whether they're willing to admit it or not. But I get how that read as obnoxious. With the previous quote, it wasn't a gift. Like I said, there's more to that. She and I know, but I see how it was assumed that it was a gift, etc. She wasn't asking for it as a gift now. But again, that's our thing to manage. Outside of the name calling, I found this very valuable. I appreciate your feedback. On the 9th, it was, you sound insufferable. On the 10th, it was,
that was the most compassionate and mature answer I've read on Thread so far. Laugh out loud. Have a great one.
This is the same commenter that just the day before, when someone challenged them saying, you sound absolutely insufferable, and they agreed with me. The conversation between them was,
She sounded like someone caring enough to tell her how to be an adult. Nothing was wrong in anything that was said.
and they responded,
No, she treated her like a silly child. I'd kindly ask her to shove those gifts in a special place if they come with 15 conditions.
the two that really left me with the most incredulous expression were,
Tell us you're a narcissist without telling us. Your need to control and your condescending way of responding to everyone are giant red flags and classic signs of narcissistic tendencies. Get over yourself. She's an adult, as are you. I'd never accept a gift from you that comes with that many strings attached. Ridiculous.
I said, I don't see what was condescending in any of my responses. I was specifically sarcastic in the response to the person saying they'll take her to buy a coat without the third degree. I told them I would have her DM them. And the first person who says she shall block me, I told her I'd tell my goddaughter, and did. I've clarified in several replies that the previous coat wasn't a gift. I honestly don't believe telling someone if they've asked you for something before and they mishandled it, where you're willing to do it now, it doesn't negate that you feel a way about what happened before. If I asked you for an umbrella that you're actively using and you gave it to me, then a few days later, I'm saying I need an umbrella after you just gave me yours, wouldn't you question that? If I then said I left it somewhere where it could be retrieved, so now I'm saying I need another one, wouldn't that make you question how you handle what you give me or think twice about giving me something? I'm sincerely asking. Maybe it wouldn't matter to you at all. For me, it gave me reason to pause and then bring it to her attention that I felt a way about it rather than feel a way and still do it or say no when she's in need. Now, perhaps my approach was wrong. Perhaps people disagree because of missing context. There's room for all of it. A narcissist would only be open to praise and validation. I'm open to feedback and correction. That was the intention behind sharing. It's unfortunate that it wasn't received that way. And she responded,
It quite possibly got lost in context. It's the internet. However, while what you did you think was a loving way of giving or teaching a lesson, how it comes across is completely different. That being said, you open yourself up to harsher criticism from the internet than anywhere else because things are lost in context and not clear as if they would be if you were speaking to us. I could be completely wrong about you in my assessment, but my assessment is based upon how I interpreted your story.
let me just add to that. She said it was lost in context because it was written and not stated verbally. It would be received differently if I was saying it. She made that statement after reading it. Let me go to the next post because that's what it is.
Jesus Christ, I hope she blocks your insufferable.
And so this was the one that I told her that I would let her know, right? I said, blocks me? Interesting, I'll let her know.
She said, yes, ma'am, you sound insufferable. All this drama over a coat?
I said, I told her you think she should block me. She said she didn't feel a way about anything that I said, and some people are sensitive. It wasn't just about a coat, but no need to belabor the point. Your feedback is appreciated. Then she responds,
Perhaps there's some backstory you didn't share that made you feel unappreciated. I can see that, but based on this post alone, it seemed dramatic for no reason. Hope you both work it out, and Merry Christmas.
Cause girl, didn't you just want her to throw me in a garbage can? Like, please miss me with your season's greetings, okay? Both justified their reactions as me leaving out context. But can we revisit point 3 again? I gave you a coat a few years back. I had just fixed the pockets. I loved that coat. It was my favorite. Full stop. I was actively wearing that coat, hence why I'd fixed the pockets. Definitely implied should have been inferred, but okay. But you needed it, so I gave it to you. Then you left it behind when you relocated. No care, no concern. You never told me until I asked. Yada, yada, yada. You shrugged your shoulders. Granted, the relocation was abrupt. Anybody could have picked it up. If you would have told me, I would have been the one to do it. The only thing not stated in this paragraph is that when I gave her the coat previously, she turned around a few weeks later and said, I need a coat. Not years later, as many stated in their posts, a few weeks. The backstory and context is definitely there. The reading to understand, no. Okay, so what was conflated? Because it started out talking about what she wanted as a gift, and my opinion was the more important need, which was the coat, trumped the want, which was the sweatsuit, that the coat from the past was also a gift. But nowhere did I say that. People read the post, people read my responses to others, saw me say the previous coat wasn't a gift, and still decided it was. Let's go back to the definition of gift. Gift, something given voluntarily without payment in return, as to show favor towards someone, honor an occasion, or make a gesture of assistance. Something given voluntarily without payment in return, as to show favor towards someone, honor an occasion, or make a gesture of assistance. Present. Giving her my coat wasn't honoring an occasion or showing favor. It was winter in New York. She was at my house. She was leaving to go home. She asked if I had a coat because her coat wasn't warm enough, and I gave her mine. That's not a gift. That's a practical solution to an immediate problem. What could have or even should have happened if there was indeed missing context or confusion and somebody actually did this? Ask questions. I say this all the time. Assume nothing, confirm everything. Everyone saw what I did wrong and what I could have done better, but communication is two-sided, and experience is supposed to be the best teacher. So unless you're new to social media, how do you condemn someone's whole character based on one conversation? She should block me, never speak to me again, and stay far away from me based on one conversation in a lifetime of conversations that you don't know about. My goal was to receive feedback so I could consider other people's perspectives. The majority of people that commented, their goal was to hurt me the way they believed I hurt her, even after being told I spoke to her, told her about the post, told her what the people were saying, and she said she wasn't hurt, harmed, harboring resentment, or feeling away. They were just sensitive. Let's go back to constructive criticism. Constructive criticism is feedback that identifies specific areas for improvement while providing actionable suggestions and maintaining respect for the recipient. Unlike harsh critique that tears down, constructive criticism builds up by focusing on behaviors and outcomes rather than attacking character or worth. Now let's look at the chart they provided to differentiate between constructive and destructive criticism. Constructive focuses on specific behaviors, while destructive attacks personality or character. Constructive offers actionable solutions. Destructive points out problems without solutions. Constructive uses I statements and observations. Destructive uses you always or you never type language. Constructive, delivered with genuine care. Destructive, delivered in anger or frustration. Constructive aims to help the person grow. Destructive aims to vent or control. Constructive includes positive aspects. Destructive only focuses on negatives. Constructive criticism. You can make sure her needs are met when it's not Xmas. If financially able, Xmas can be about wants. Am I making noise? I probably am. Sorry. Destructive criticism. This is the most self-absorbed Karen post I've read all day. I'm gonna suck to be your kid. Constructive criticism. Maybe identify that the first item was a Christmas gift. These are often wants rather than needs. That's the point. You get something less serious as a treat. Seem to be a lot of strings attached to your gifts. Destructive criticism.
I see that every gift from you comes at a high hidden cost. You are not giving gifts, period.
You're right. I wasn't. The gift she got. The coat wasn't a gift. Reading to comprehend. Well, let me finish telling y'all what this lady says. She aggravated my nerves.
You make people endure your rhetoric and lectures as penance for receiving anything from you. This is gross. Here you are on Threads, crowing about how wonderful you are for giving a gift to your goddaughter under the guise of discussion, read as attention, and everything is about you. Hope goddaughter cuts her losses.
Going back to feedback's definition, a reaction or response to a particular process or activity, evaluative information derived from such a reaction or response. Feedback can be anything. Some of the more neutral feedback was, do you and let her do her. It's not really a gift if it's not something you want. You asked her what she wanted and she told you. You didn't ask for a need. That's where you went wrong. This reflects more on you than it does on her. What I find more often than not is that people use words but don't actually know their definitions. Now, that includes basic, common, everyday words and expressions, not just advanced vocabulary. So with a term like constructive criticism, where the root word in constructive is construct, and construct means to build. The objective in offering constructive criticism is to give them feedback that builds them up. Most people have only mastered the criticism part, which is the act of passing judgment as to the merits of anything, and the act of passing severe judgment, censure, and fault finding. Now, Passionate, you said to me that it's a slippery slope between constructive criticism and being intentionally hurtful. I think that's a yes and a no. Yes, depending on the recipient and what their level of sensitivity, what they deem as disrespectful, where they are emotionally, not the same thing as their level of sensitivity, because one could be dealing with something at the time of the feedback that renders them way more reactive than they would be if they weren't navigating the same circumstance. In these cases, yes, the feedback could be interpreted as intentionally malintended when that's not the case. But now, knowing what constructive criticism actually is, how it's defined, how to execute it, there's no slippery slope. If what was said wasn't said to build you up or forward your work, it wasn't constructive criticism. I think a lot of people misconstrue unsolicited opinion and or advice for constructive criticism. People often assume they can give you leadership in a space without ever considering that what matters to them isn't a concern of yours at all. I think a lot of creatives experience that. I remember featuring at a spoken word event, and I did a poem called Prayer. It was my prayer to my God about me and my journey. Someone came up to me after the show and said something to the effect of, I should change it so it's more inclusive because everybody doesn't believe in the same thing. Excuse me, what? I wasn't leading a prayer for the congregation of an inter or non-denominational faith gathering. I was praying for me. I should change my prayer for me to make you feel included in it? Unsolicited opinion, not constructive criticism, just feedback. And Passionate, if you're a creative like me, that kind of feedback can make you hesitant to share and even make you sometimes question if you should share anything at all. Don't let these people who aren't doing what you're doing, who are doing what you're doing, who used to do what you're doing, who may or may not know what's important to you, who may or may not matter to you, don't let them get in your head, especially if they're just a random on the internet. Now, could it be a show producer who's looking for new talent? Sure. It could also be someone who's mentally unstable and using your post to vent out all the frustration towards someone else that therapy and church haven't healed for them yet. Oddly specific example, but beloved, this post gave me at least 30 responses from one commenter, and those were the boxes that they checked. And for all of that, they did their best to drag me for filth, chastise me, tell me what my intentions were. They went under every dissenter and vitriolic comment talking about how validated and seen they felt because their grandmother's a raging narcissist and does this very thing. None of their comments are visible any longer because I think they deleted their page. Why share that? Someone's going to give you some off-the-wall feedback on day A, and a year from now, they'll be gone. No way to find them, having left nothing of worth to remember them by. The only reason I remember her was because I woke up to so many notifications from her. I took screenshots because I had to show my confidant. You can hold a doctorate and be called stupid and uneducated. You can be astonishingly gorgeous and be called ugly. You can be the size of a hairpin and called fat. You can have one intimate partner your whole life and be called a hoe. People be talking to hear themselves. They post things to incense you. People make assumptions about what you are and aren't doing and the why. Then they attempt to fill in those gaps for themselves by answering questions you didn't need answered. The next thing I'm going to say to you is going to sound oversimplified, but ride with me. Don't internalize it. Don't internalize it.
Passion. I read that post and I read those comments. If they would have come at me like that, I would have crashed out on every last one of them. Cause WITAF, they think they talking to.
Beloved, I agree, but that's just it. They don't know who they're talking to. People have whole internet personas completely different than who they are in the 3D offline where there's human touch. Who I am here on the socials and in the 3D are the same. Are there aspects that I don't share with everybody? Of course. Passion, the podcast host, and Passion, the driver, have two very different temperaments, and the language used is vastly different. Different energy in different spaces for different circumstances. Passion, the public persona, knows that if I go lower when they go low, that's all that's remembered. That's what's going to go viral. Not years of doing self-help work, and that's what they would look for to validate their accusation.
She supposed to be that got you right, go ruin. She gave me one little criticism.
293 comments. Over 25,000 views. A little criticism. These be the same ones that delete their whole profile when the mob comes with the pitchforks after them. Anticipate that what you say or what you do might not be well received and leave room for that. Yes, most of the time, the goal is to get under your skin in some way. The goal for them was to make me feel like they assumed I made her feel. Belittled, shamed, demoralized. So they led with disrespect, and when I didn't match their energy, they either went silent or they changed their tune. Something intended as disrespect is only disrespect if that's how it's received. You meant to make me feel like a monster, but it didn't work. Or like any example Passionate shared with me, the comments imply the commenter is trying to make the poster feel like what they're doing is mid, but what the poster was focused on and what the commenter was focused on was two different things. So to you, what is mid, to me, is immaterial.
Passion, they literally called you names and were cursing at you. Rudeness was in a definition of disrespect.
Correct. But let me frame it for you a little differently. Just because you're trying to make me feel away doesn't mean you're succeeding. Initially, I'm reading responses and looking like, time out. Hey, you don't even know me. Then I'm like, you don't even know me. Some of these comments looking like y'all looked at somebody else's answer and copied it down. It's giving unoriginal, especially since I've clarified this. I see your crash out and raise you a humble reply. That's why the people were asking if I was autistic. Because how was I not wilding out when these people were going ham? But I got what I came for. Open dialogue, other perspectives. I didn't come for war and I wasn't going to fight in this. Now, Passionate, if you're like last week's listener who has always been the fighter, that might be your first instinct. Get at them immediately. And even if that's always been your first response, try taking a beat before saying anything. Remind yourself, after it's all said and done, this is just engagement. Then respond. I thanked almost everyone that commented on that post for their feedback, even and especially the disrespectful ones. The first two, I gave them a little sarcastic one sentence and kept it moving. But as this thing started catching fire, I was very intentional about my responses. And eventually, none of the comments evoked any emotion. It was necessary for me to put everything into perspective before responding so that I could indeed respond and not react. And if lower self isn't going to let it go without you saying something, only thank them for their engagement. Let them sit with the fact that they're now just a number helping your thing grow. Comment on that. Okay, beloved, I think we covered it. The line ain't fine and the slope ain't slippery. People will test you to see if they can get you to react. If y'all have a moment, go check out the What is Constructive Criticism blog post on scienceofpeople.com. No, this is not sponsored in any way, but it gave great tools on how to give and to receive constructive criticism, and we could all benefit from that. Link is in the description box below. Donation links for Zelle, Linktree, and PayPal are also in the description box if you'd like to make a donation to support your favorite pod. Listener letters can be sent to my brilliant friend passion@gmail.com. You never have to ask my permission to share this podcast. Share it as many times and to as many people as you want. Let's get better together. With that, your Get You Right Guru is signing off. Y'all go forth. Be great. Be filled with bliss. excuse me, be armed and empowered with knowledge. You know your intentions, and those are the intentions you're responsible for. Be better than they deserve. It'll come back to you. In all things, be passionate. See you later. Sidebar passion is if you leave me a comment and your comment say, nah, Passion, I think you was wrong. You know what I mean? You was crazy how you was talking to her. They should have crucified you a little bit more. They should have hung you upside down. It's been covered. Come with an original comment or see me in next week's episode. Many thanks. Shout out to the neighbors downstairs. Their constant smoking around the clock is now turning into a cough. All these people are motivating me. They're going to motivate me, and I'm going to get my house.